Hello everyone, Blade Bananas here. Welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to showcase this team that is probably one of the strongest meta lines that you could run in Ultra League Remix Cup. And I ran this team and it got me really high on the leaderboard. As you guys can see, globally, we were number 6 with our elo at 3481 with this team. So this team is definitely very solid. It consists of a Mandibuzz in the lead with Politoed as a safe swap, and then you have Nidoqueen, which counters charm users, right? So it will be the hard counter or finisher on this team to cover for the Mandibuzz. And without further ado, let's get into some of the battles. So first matchup, we landed a really good lead against Drifblim, and this was one of the reasons why I decided to lead Mandibuzz, because it's just really solid against a lot of the ghost Pokemon we're going to see. And here my opponent made a really good catch. I really shouldn't have thrown this Dark Pulse, and I think I had the time to react, but I didn't make the right play. So basically that energy is going to waste now because I don't need 2 Weather Balls to take out this Stunfisk, and even though I landed a Dark Pulse, I still need to land 2 Weather Balls with my Politoed. So that was definitely not good energy management on my side with the Mandibuzz, but fortunately we still have very solid counters, right? And Mandibuzz is still very good against a Drifblim. So here we're basically just going to farm up and then throw these Weather Balls to chunk down these this Drifblim as best as we can. And after these Weather Ball lands on the Drifblim, they're almost in Dark Pulse range. I think I need to land one more. I was hoping my opponent would throw an Icy Wind and try to farm me down. That way I could put them into a Dark Pulse range. But now my opponent is not in Dark Pulse range anymore. So I think I'm going to land one Dark Pulse. I should have thrown this Dark Pulse earlier before the debuff came. But we got a shield, which is really good for me. And I'm going to go for another Dark Pulse, and I think my opponent is one fast move away from their next Icy Wind, which they get it here. Again, I'm just going to let it go because Mandibuzz is just such a tanky beast. You're able to survive 3 Icy Winds. I don't believe I even... Okay, I decided to shield just in case they have a Jellicent in the back, which means I need this Mandibuzz for later. It turned out my opponent only had a Ferrothorn, which is not enough to take out my Nidoqueen on its own. And at this point, I just have to make sure I get off 2 Earth Power against this Ferrothorn. And I'm always trying to throw in the middle of their fast move so that my opponent don't sneak a fast move in. Basically, you want to throw at 1, 4, 7 in 2 turn versus 3 turn scenarios. And if you guys haven't, make sure to check out my video on that from a while ago. But basically, we just need to land 2 Earth Powers here, basically, to ensure our win here. And we took out the Ferrothorn, and then they just have a Drifblim, which we can take out with the Dark Pulse that we stored up a little bit earlier. And that concludes this matchup. Basically, we just have very solid counter to their lead and their safe swap, right? Next up, we have Mandibuzz versus Ninetales, one of the worst leads you could possibly run into. I'm going to swap into Politoed as my safe swap, and they come in with Scrafty. This is actually a really solid matchup for Politoed because you don't want to shield up anything, and in the 0 shields, if you're able to deny their fast move, then I believe you could get 2 shields, especially if they bait the second time. If they go for straight if they go for straight Power Punch, it would be really good for you because you could get shields, especially if they want to ensure winning swap advantage. And I know that my opponent is not at a foul play here, so I don't even have to shield. And basically, I'm going to overfarm a little bit and get off 2 Weather Balls right here. And I was able to deny a counter right there, which means I should be able to land one more. Even if I didn't deny there, I think I still survive one more counter from here, which we're going to find out. And yes, I do live one more counter, so I didn't even have to deny it that time. And basically, you get off 2 shields from your opponent with your Politoed. So that's a very good scenario because not a lot of Pokemon can beat a Nidoqueen in the end game scenario. especially if Nidoqueen has 2 shields remaining. So here I'm just trying to take out my opponent Scrafty here, and then hoping that my Nidoqueen can sweep whatever they could have in the back. And I believe I will shield these weather balls up from my opponent Ninetales, A-Ninetales. And it turned out my opponent had a Politoed, which is really good against my Nidoqueen, unfortunately. But I think this is a game where my opponent lagged a little bit. So I think my opponent caught up with the mush shots as well. So I'm not sure if the lag actually affected them, because it looked like they weren't attacking, but then they were attacking really fast. But fortunately, I think we barely got off the Earth Power, and I think we still live 1 Weather Ball from here, just barely. We don't have the greatest IVs on the Nidoqueen, but it's a shiny, and I only had around 30 XL, so I spent all of them on this Nidoqueen. And here we're able to get off this Poison Fang just barely, and it was a CMP tie, which was absolutely huge. Because that was CMP tie, basically my opponent wasted a lot of energy, and now I can get to this Aerial Ace before my opponent gets to 2 Weather Balls or a Dazzling Gleam. And this should take out my opponent. If not, 2 more Snarls, well, 3 more Snarls. So my opponent was trying to build up to double, but they just barely weren't able to get to double Weather Balls at the end, and we're able to win that game. Next up, we're against a Jellicent. Again, a pretty solid lead. Especially because my Backmon is not great against Jellicent. So I'm going to obviously just staying here. My opponent goes for a Bubble Beam before swapping out to chip me down and lower my attack stat. And I'm going to chip my opponent with Aerial Ace and then swap into my Nidoqueen. I still want to make sure I have some energy available on my Mandibuzz, right? In case we need it for later against the Jellicent. And basically I'm just trying to sacrifice my Nidoqueen here because Nidoqueen is not great against their Jellicent later on. So hopefully I'm probably not going to shield anything and just try to take out this Mandibuzz with my Nidoqueen and hopefully come out with the Earth Power to chip down their Nidoqueen as well. My opponent keeps going for Aerial Ace, which is very interesting to me. Because Foul Play would definitely do more damage unless my opponent is running Dark Pulse, which will cost a little bit more energy as well. And then my opponent comes in with the Jelly. We're just barely able to get off this Earth Power, which is really huge, because now we put it almost into a Dark Pulse range, or at least a Dark Pulse and swap out range. And then my opponent comes in with the Ninetales with 2 shields, and that is very tricky for me. I'm throwing it on 7 again because I don't want my opponent to get a free charm through, and then I'm going to get off another Weather Ball. Right after that, throwing at 1 to deny a charm. That's what I'm always trying to do here with my Politoed, basically. So here I think I'm going to do 1 more Mush Shot and then throw, but my opponent got a desync, so they landed the charm before I even got my Mush Shot, and then they snuck another charm. So we're barely able to get off this second Weather Ball, and that is absolutely huge. My Politoed was able to survive with exactly 1 HP. But because of that fast move sneaking, I almost didn't get to my move. And I believe I was a little bit frustrated at the time, but luckily the Politoed was able to hang on, and we're able to get off that Weather Ball, which essentially puts this A-Ninetales into Aerial Ace range for my Mandibuzz, and we're able to barely take that win here. Very close game. Alright, against a Galvantula, I think this is a game where I massively misplay, as you guys are going to see. Here we snuck a Snarl through because I thought my opponent was going to throw, and I lose CMP anyways, and now I'm going to throw after 1 fast move, because again, I'm going to throw in the middle so that my opponent doesn't get an extra move through. We get a shield, which is pretty good, and then my opponent got another desync, so I kind of have to throw here after 2 to make sure my opponent doesn't get another fast move through. And now I think my opponent is just trying to farm me down. They got another desync, so they were able to get to this move even before we had the 4th Snarl, which is a little bit unfortunate. And I make a huge misplay here. So Nidoqueen walls Galvantula, but I bring Politoed. And the thought process behind bringing Politoeding for me was that I wanted to get a little bit more energy And as you guys are going to see, this is the worst misplay I could have ever made in my life. Because essentially, Politoed is bad against Galvantula. And you guys are going to see that they have 2 Pokemon weak to Politoed. And I basically just gave away my Politoed for free. And that is absolutely, absolutely terrible. So here I'm even trying to overfarm. But at this point, it really doesn't matter because my Politoed is a little bit too low now and I have 0 shield. If I just brought out my Nidoqueen, which essentially walls the Galvantula, I could have easily won this with my Politoed. But at the time, I wasn't really thinking clearly. So we ended up not doing too well here with our Nidoqueen because they have 2 Pokemon that counters Nidoqueen, which makes sense as well. Because they are very weak to Nidoqueen the lead, right? So they have 2 Pokemon in the back that hard counters my Nidoqueen, and this is going to be game over. GG to my opponent. Very, very bad misplay on my side. Definitely bringing Nidoqueen against Galvantula if you can. Alright, next up we're against Scrafty. This is not a bad matchup. It's also not a great matchup. So if this goes to 2 shields, I believe Scrafty actually wins because their counter hits for neutral and then they can just ramp up with their power punch. But in the 1 shields and in the 0 shields, I believe Mandibuzz can easily take the win here. Opponent obviously is going to go for straight power punch because foul play is resisted. And I'm just trying to throw these arrow aces. And usually you need to land 3 arrow aces in order to take out a Scrafty. So I'm always building up to 2 in case my opponent tries to go for a catch. And here I'm just going to throw back to back, hoping to grab a shield or we almost take out the Scrafty. My opponent doesn't shield, so I come in with my Politoed and just lands 4 mud shots to take out the Scrafty. But the counter still chunked me down, which is fine because we had so much energy lead. They come in with Jelly. Again, I'm going to throw F4 to throw in the middle of the Hex, throwing this Earthquake, which chunks down this Jellicent quite a bit. And then my opponent goes for a move here. I believe I actually shield this because I feel like they could have a Pokemon weak to my Politoed in the end. And here I'm going to overfarm. And I'm actually going for Weather Ball here because 2 Weather Balls take out this Jellicent. And 1 Earthquake would also take it out. And it's just safer to go for double Weather Ball because they're around the same energy, right? In case my opponent shielded. And it turned out my opponent had a Nidoqueen. Which meant definitely saving the Politoed was a good choice for me. Do I shield this? I don't shield this Poison Fang, and I wasn't able to get off the second move, which is a little bit unfortunate. So this is a Nidoqueen mirror matchup, but because we're both non-shadow, I believe the Earth Power will not take me out. So what I'm going to do is go for straight Earth Power, and we chip it down with the Mud Shots earlier that put their Nidoqueen within Earth Power range. So I believe I no shield this because I think my lose condition is shielding a Poison Fang and end up getting knocked out by the Earth Power. So we no shield the Earth Power, and now we're able to get off the Earth Power before they get off another Poison Fang to take the win here. It turned out to be a very, very close game because Nidoqueen mirrors are always very scary. And I believe after that game we got pretty high elo, and we're gonna keep going here against Abomasnow. Not great lead, but believe it or not, you actually win the 0 shields with the Mandibuzz, if I remember correctly. Because 2 arrow aces will almost take out the Abomasnow. Either that or the Abomasnow has to throw a lot of energy. Okay, I think I had the wrong, I remembered wrong. You actually, if you had arrow ace, I believe you could win this matchup in the 0 shields. But because I only have Snarl, I don't believe I can win. But you survive 2 Weather Balls pretty easily. And if I can't get to another one, but I got off his shield, which is okay for me. And I make another misplay in this game, as you guys are going to see. I come in with Nidoqueen. I no shield the first Weather Ball. But yeah, I'm going to make a very, very big misplay. So I don't know why, but I thought that Nidoqueen wins CMP against Abomasnow, but apparently I lose CMP against Abomasnow, so basically I wasted this entire Poison Fang worth of energy. I'm going to no charge this so I can get a little bit more energy against this Abomasnow, but the damage is kind of already done there. And my opponent had a Jellicent in the back, and a Machamp comes in, and this is pretty much game over because I can't beat this Machamp in the one shields with my Politoed, and I can't beat the Jellicent in pretty much an O shielding scenario with my Nidoqueen, right? So this is a very tough game for me at this point. I go for the Weather Ball, and we get a shield, and I'm trying to land another Weather Ball. It doesn't matter if we shield here or not because they still have a full health Jellicent, and this is going to be game over. I believe I don't even throw any move, and I just let my opponent take me out at this point. And GG to my opponent. Keep in mind that I play against pretty much the same people every day, so we all know each other's team, and a lot of times we just know there's really not much I could have done, and we take those pretty easy because we can't win anyways, right? There's no reason to get too bugged out by one game. Alright, next up against the Stunfisk Lead. This matchup is absolutely fine for Mandibuzz, like I mentioned in my last video, because you're able to lift 3 Rock Slides, and you can get off 3 Dark Pulses, which puts this Stunfisk extremely low with your Stunfisk, with your Mandibuzz, and that's really good. And in some cases you could even win this matchup, depending on if you could sneak an extra Snarl in against this Stunfisk. So we land another Dark Pulse right here against this Stunfisk, and I'm just going to let them take me out, which is fine. I'm probably going to come in with my Politoed and just completely farm down the Stunfisk and have a Weather Ball ready against whatever they have in the back, which is looking good for me so far. And it looked like they had a Mewtwo in the back. Armor Mewtwo is very bad for my Nidoqueen, so I kind of have to take it out with my Politoed at this point. I'm just trying to farm up a lot of energy before I decide to launch these Weather Balls. So I'm going to throw in the middle of the confusion just in case, I don't want them to get a free confusion through. But here, yep, I'm going to throw in the middle again, going for this Weather Ball. And if my opponent doesn't shield, I'm going to keep going for Weather Ball, hoping to grab a shield, or we take out this Mewtwo, right? And we end up taking out this Mewtwo, which is pretty good for us, but it turned out they had a Dragalge in the back. So I could have still won this game, but I make a terrible mistake here by throwing on alignment, and my opponent was able to get a free Dragon Tail. And if I swapped out a little bit earlier into my Nidoqueen, I think I could have better won this game as well, because then I could have chipped down this Dragalge with my Poison Fang, and then my Mushots on my Politoed would do way more damage, right? But that's definitely a misplay on my side. And here we got the last shield, and I'm going to land a Poison Fang. If this is what we did at the very beginning, instead of staying with my Politoed, I think this matchup could have changed, and I should have gone for a Weather Ball, hoping that the double debuff will make this Dragalge into the Weather Ball range. But I got a little bit more greedy. I got a little bit greedy, and I ended up losing that game. So very unfortunate. There were definitely some things that I could have done better to win that game. But it's always okay because it's just a learning process, right? We make mistakes, and hopefully we don't make the same mistake the next time we play. And this game, I want to speed this up because if I remember correctly, we just played out a complete Mandibuzz mirror. And as you guys know, with Mandibuzz mirrors, none of you guys take any damage, so it's going to go on for quite a while. Let me just skip it a little bit. Alright, still Mandibuzz mirror, still Mandibuzz mirror, still Mandibuzz mirror. Alright, very end. And I think I had one Snarl lead against my opponent. I think we're around the same CP, right? Let's see if we are. But I was able to live with 1 HP, and I land my Arrow Ace, and it barely takes out my opponent. So now I have switch advantage. Basically, that was just 1 Snarl difference in terms of damage. Or maybe they missed a bubble. That could be the case as well. And they come in with Nidoqueen, so now I'm thinking they might have a Mirror Team, which wouldn't be that great for me. But I no shield a Poison Fang here because you don't want to shield the first Poison Fang in case they get a debuff, right? And then I'm going to go for a Weather Ball, which does not KO my opponent, but my opponent shielded, so I'm going to go for another one here, which gets shielded again, which is pretty interesting. And at this point, I really want to land a Weather Ball against this Nidoqueen. Let's see, I try to land this, but my opponent was able to swap out, catch it on their Charm user. So luckily I have Nidoqueen in the back, and this is pretty much game over because I can just farm down this Charm user, Fairy Pokemon, and then throw the Earth Power to take on my opponent, and that was game over. Next up we have Giratina in the lead, which is very good. This matchup is not, this game is not over because I need to maintain swap, but at the same time I don't have a hard answer to this Politoed. So what I have to do is try to chip down this Politoed and then swap out into my own Politoed in order to ensure winning swap advantage. Because we have to have our Mandibuzz matched up against the Giratina, right? So we go for double Dark Pulse, which puts my opponent Politoed into Weather Ball range. And I'm going to come in with my own Politoed and basically build up a little bit of energy before we go for our Weather Ball right here, trying to take on my opponent Politoed. And now we have switch advantage, and that will be very good for me. I know this was too quick to be an Earthquake, so I let this go. It was just a Weather Ball, and I can farm down this Politoed. And let's see what my opponent comes in with. My opponent comes in with the Giratina, which is fine by me. I'm going to go for my Earthquake to chip down this Giratina. And now I have swap advantage, and that's pretty much all I really needed for me to win. And I'm going to wait out the switch timer because I did swap out after a while. So I come in with my Mandibuzz, and then my opponent had a Ninetales in the back. So this is definitely game over at this point. Nidoqueen is a very, very hard answer to this Ninetales. And I'm going to get off as many poison things as I can. I'm going to match shields against my opponent. Because as long as I have Mandibuzz against the Giratina, there is really not much my opponent can do, right? I'm going to go for this Poison Fang, and this is definitely game over. I really don't think my opponent can win this game with the Giratina. We resist pretty much everything. I recognize that I couldn't get to the Earth Power, so I just go for a Poison Fang. My opponent probably no shields because they can't shield anything there anyways, and then coming with my Mandibuzz, my opponent recognizes it's game over, and good game to my opponent. Next up, we're against a very spicy Pokemon, Gliscor. It's pretty funny because I played this trainer earlier with the Gengar team, and my opponent hard countered my line, but then I changed to this team, and I was able to kind of hard counter my opponent, as you guys are going to see. Because you wall the Gliscor with your Mandibuzz. I go for the second Dark Pulse. My opponent makes a really good catch into a Skuntank, XL Skuntanks. So that's very, very interesting by my opponent. I believe I actually shield this move because I know that my Politoed is good against their Gliscor anyways. So what I can do here is go for Weather Ball and then just hopefully farm down this opponent's Skuntank. And now I have loaded energy against their Gliscor if they do decide to come in with the Gliscor. They do come in with the Gliscor. I know they have an Earthquake built up, and I shielded correctly the Earthquake. I had so much energy, I decided that I wanted to unload them onto this Gliscor, which is really good for me right now. This is probably a Night Slash, which doesn't take out my Gliscor. And I'm going to swap out and try to farm down the Gliscor. And it turned out my opponent had a Snorlax in the back. So at this point, it's pretty much a wrap, because Mandibuzz with full health, almost full health, can definitely take out this Snorlax, and I still have 2 Weather Balls worth of energy on my Politoed, right? My opponent ended up having to shield a Poison Jab there as well, or Poison Fang, which is never ideal. And my opponent still need to throw another Body Slam in order to take out my Nidoqueen right here. So at this point, my opponent is out of energy, and I have 2 Weather Balls stored. So I come in with my Politoed, and I'm just going to launch all these Weather Balls as fast as I can. My opponent shields up the first one and then catches the second one. My opponent is making all these beautiful catches, trying his best to win, but I just have the complete hard countered team comp for my opponent, and we're able to take the win. Next up, we're against Deoxys defense. This is not great for the Mandibuzz. Obviously, well, this is great for the Mandibuzz, my bad. This is not great for the DD. It's actually a pretty neutral matchup because DD can still hit back with the Rock Slides. And these Pokemon are both very, very tanky. I don't know what I was saying earlier, but yeah, these 2 Pokemon is actually pretty neutral than you would expect. And my opponent made a beautiful catch onto their Mandibuzz, onto my Dark Pulse. So I think that might have actually changed the outcome at the very end of the matchup, that they caught a Dark Pulse on the Mandibuzz. Very, very well played by my opponent. I'm going to go for a Poison Fang right here, which drops the defense on my opponent Mandibuzz, but Mandibuzz is just so tanky, right? And they're going to chip me down with the Foul Place, and I'm going to go for my Poison Fangs right here. Basically, my thought process was that my Nidoqueen wasn't great against the DD, so I decided to come in with my Nidoqueen here to avoid the DD matchup. Can I barely survive the Foul Play and get off another Poison Fang? We are able to get off this Poison Fang against the opponent Deoxys. This is really, really solid for me, because after that, I think this Deoxys is basically within Dark Pulse range after the debuff. And now coming with my Mandibuzz, I'm going to land this Dark Pulse. I know that this Rock Slide doesn't take me out, so I don't shield this Rock Slide. And then this Dark Pulse should take on my opponent at this range, especially after the debuff, right? But my opponent shields up again, and hopefully I don't get farmed down, because that would be really terrible for me. And I think my opponent could have committed all the way to farm me down, but fortunately my opponent threw some energy, so now I can come in with my Politoed, and then my opponent had a Snorlax in the back. This game is definitely not over, because I need to land 3 Weather Balls to take out my Snorlax, my opponent's Snorlax, and I still need some energy, residual energy coming out of this matchup for my opponent back Pokemon, right? Because they still have a Deoxys with a very low HP, and they still have a Mandibuzz with very low HP. But I definitely need some HP coming out of this matchup, basically, and residual energy. I do survive the superpower, which is good for me. I can build up a little bit more extra, and then I go for this Weather Ball. And now I'm going to probably throw my Weather Ball against whatever comes in here. Let's see, my opponent comes in with a Deoxys. This is going to be really, really close. So I go for this Weather Ball, and I'm 1 away from the next one, and I'm barely able to get this Weather Ball, and the timer is up. So if I take out this DD, they only have 1 Pokemon in the back, and the time is up, and we have 2 Pokemon remaining. My opponent only had 1 Mandibuzz, and we're able to win that game. That was very, very close. GG's to my opponent. I think my opponent would have won the game if there was no timer, which is very unlucky for my opponent. Here we're against Snorlax, so basically I just need to maintain swap advantage, because I had such a good lead matchup against the Gliscor. And actually I don't think it's that important, because my Politoed also has a lot of play against the Gliscor. So I'm going to go for these Poison Fangs with my Nidoqueen. Basically, I just want to win swap advantage. And I believe I could barely survive this Body Slam, so I opted to not shield. And I can just farm down the Snorlax all the way down. And then I'm going to go for some Poison Fangs right now to chip down my opponent and drop their defense. Obviously, they're going to swap out once I come in with my Mandibuzz right here. And they come in with the Magnezone, and basically I just need to get their shields, and then keep doing the mash shots, hopefully to put them in low range. And I'm gonna go for these weather balls. I believe I shield up this. I don't really need to shield this at this point. It was very likely to be a bait, but because I get to my weather ball so fast, if I just land a single weather ball, this is definitely a wrap. So if my opponent threw energy right before I got to this weather ball, I would probably no shield it because they have to go for wild charge and that drops their defense. But because my opponent went for one more and we're able to get the CMP tie here, I decided not to. I decided to shield and instead of calling the bait, and then that basically seals the deal here because we landed the weather ball to make their magnet zone low enough where we can snarl down, and then Gliscor pretty much can't do anything against the Mandibuzz, right? And my opponent knows that as well, so they decided to give up. This is against a very strong streamer. Strong trainer as well, so he knew the game was over and let us took out the magnet zone. All right, next game we have Mandibuzz against Snorlax. This is a game where I misplayed terribly. This person is a friend of mine. He knew my team very well, but I didn't really know his team, so I think I definitely made a lot of misplays, as you guys are going to see. I go for my Dark Pulse right here. This is obviously a good matchup for Mandibuzz. You win this matchup in O shielding scenario, and I let this go. I thought I clicked on the move, so I don't think my opponent could swap out, and apparently my opponent could swap out, and they got an invisible poison jab right here that I think I saw, but I wasn't sure because I realized the damage was a little bit too much on my Politoed when I swapped in, so I knew they got a free poison jab, and now I go for a weather ball. They snuck in another poison jab. So whatever they could have an earth power right here, and I got a little bit scared, so I decided to shield. But it was just a poison fang, and then I think my opponent CMP tied me right here, which is even worse for me. I know there's a poison fang, so I decided not to shield. But as you guys are going to see, they actually had a Kingdra in the back. But if I had known that they had a Kingdra in the back, I would probably just sack my Politoed and not give up a single shield, right? But my opponent comes in with Kingdra and just farm me down. And this is very tough for me at this point because they have a Snorlax that's loaded in energy. And I don't have two shields. If I had two shields, I think this matchup would have been much better. This is where like knowing the team would really come in handy. I decided not to shield this Octazooka, which is also a debatable play because it would do a lot of damage to me. My opponent didn't even get the debuff. And then I go for another Poison Fang, hoping to grab a shield. We do get a shield, and my opponent comes in with Snorlax. I come in with my Mandibuzz, hoping to get off to take out the Snorlax and still have some energy for the Kingdra, but my opponent has so much energy that they're able to just take my Mandibuzz out with the Snorlax because they are going to land 2 more body slams from here before able to get this arrow ace right here. Again, I think I clicked on the arrow ace, but as you guys are going to see, it was actually my opponent actually could get off 2 here, and we ended up losing that game. Well, losing our Mandibuzz, and that's pretty much game over for me. I go for this Poison Fang, but their Kingdra has too much health for me. So yeah, if I knew that they had a Kingdra in the back, I think I would have just sacked my Politoed, and we would have probably end up winning the game with 2 shields on the Nidoqueen. But that's a little bit unfortunate, and it's part of the game as well. Part of being a content creator is that your team is known to pretty much everyone, right? But again, GG to my opponent. And that's the end of the video. And as I shown earlier, I landed pretty high on the leaderboard, globally number 6. With 3481 MMR with this team. So if you have the resource to build this team, definitely give it a try. I think the hardest part of this team is probably having the Mandibuzz, because Mandibuzz is a very hard Pokemon to get by, especially the XL candies. But I think the other 2 are definitely available to trainers above level 40. Nidoqueen has been was spawning quite a lot a while ago, and I didn't even build a very high ranked one. It was like level 41.5, so it only requires 30 XL candies. And then we have Politoed. You could definitely use a higher attack weighted Politoed. I think it wouldn't really matter that much. I just had a good ranked one, so I decided to build this one. But yeah, if you don't have Mandibuzz, I'm not sure exactly what could replace it, because Mandibuzz is very, very special on its own. One possibility could be a Stunfisk if you have a resource for Stunfisk, but again, that's also a very hard Pokemon to get. But yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in my next video.